Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for math today, you need your math notebook, math workbook, a pencil, and you will also need a glue stick. As you are listening to this presentation, I'm going to be giving you some directions. I'm not going to stop and just be silent throughout the presentation while you follow those directions. Rather, what you need to do is just simply click pause on the presentation, follow the directions that I gave you, and when you are done, come back to the presentation and resume by clicking the play button. First, start off in your notebook by writing the name of this lesson. It's lesson 2-1, and it's called Decimals as Equal Divisions. Go ahead and pause the presentation now, follow those directions, and come back to the presentation when you are finished. Underneath the name of this lesson, lesson 2-1, I would like you to write the learning target. The learning target of this lesson is, I will understand that decimals are equal divisions of a whole, like a fraction. I will also be able to correctly read a decimal number. Now I'd like you to pause the presentation, copy this page, these notes into your notebook, and then come back to the presentation when you're finished. Underneath the learning target, copy the vocabulary word and definition into your notebook. The vocabulary word is decimal. A decimal is simply an equal part of a whole, like a fraction, but written differently. Underneath that vocabulary word, there are some other notes here. Decimal notes, copy in your math notebook. Thousands, give it a space. Hundreds, a space. Tens, space. Ones. These numbers to the left of a decimal point are called the whole numbers. In between the whole numbers and the decimal places is a decimal point. Copy the decimal point, and to the right of the decimal point, write the words tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. There are a couple of questions to consider. What patterns do you notice, and why do you think there isn't a oneths place? I'd like you to pause the presentation, copy the notes, these notes, think about the questions, and then go back into your Schoology Lesson 2.1 assignments and answer the question in Schoology on the discussion board, why do you think there isn't a oneths place? When you are finished with those directions, come back to this slide and resume the presentation to continue on. The next step that I would like you to do is put the place value chart that looks like the one here on this slide into your math notebook. We're going to take a minute right now just to discuss what's going on in this place value chart. On the top row of this chart are the names of the place values that we just copied into our notes a few minutes ago. We're going to start with the largest place that's listed here, and that's the thousands place. Next, we go to hundreds, tens, and ones. These places are all considered whole numbers. They're not a part of a whole, they are a whole number. Then we move over here where we do have parts of a whole, and they start from tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. As a reminder, on the top of the chart, there are some arrows. Going to the right, you can see that each place in our place value system is 1/10 as big as the place next to it. So from thousands to hundreds, you would divide by 10. From hundreds to tens, you divide by 10. If you take 10 and divide it by 10, you get 1. And you keep going, dividing by 10 every time you move one place to the right. Then it would be the opposite if you're going to the left. So if we start with the ones place, each place to the left is 10 times as big. 1 times 10 is 10. 10 times 10 is 100. 100 times 10 is 1,000. So to recap, moving to the left, each place is 10 times bigger. Moving to the right, each place is 1/10 as big, or you divide by 10 to get to the next place. The second row of our chart shows what the decimal numbers look like. Thousands would be this number 1,000, 100, 10, and 1. Written in decimal form, tenths looks like 0.1, hundredths looks like 0.01, and thousandths looks like 0.001. These decimal numbers are equivalent to fractions because both fractions and decimals are parts of numbers. So underneath the decimal notation, we have the fraction notation. Remember that any number written as a fraction out of 1 is that number because a fraction bar means divide. So 1,000 written as a decimal is just 1,000 over 1 written as a fraction. Same thing with 100. 100 is 100 over 1 because 100 divided by 1 is equal to 100. 10 over 1 or 10 divided by 1 is 10. The next place is the ones place. The ones place would be 1 out of 1, which is just 1. This is a big clue as to why there is no ones place. Let's finish these fraction notations and then we'll come back to that question of ones. When we move on to the decimal numbers, 1/10 is the same as the fraction 1 out of 10. Hundredths would be 1 out of 100. And thousandths would be 1 out of 1,000. If we were to have a ones place, it would be written as 1 out of 1 still, but 1 out of 1 or 1 divided by 1 is just 1. That is why there is no ones place because 1 divided by 1 is not a part of a number, but the whole number 1. Throughout this lesson, or throughout this unit rather, we're also going to look at decimals and fractions and how they relate to money. So 1,000 would be the same as $1,000. 100 would be the same as $100. 10 is the same as $10. 1 is $1. And for the decimal numbers, 1/10 would be 10 equal parts of $1, which is 1 dime or 10 cents. 100th would be 1/100th of a dollar, which is the same as a penny because it takes 100 pennies to equal $1. Thousandths then is 1/10 of 1 penny. So it's not even 1 penny in value.